Hello, Chris. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. You?
I am living the dream. Thanks so much for joining me here on Contractor Stories. On Contractor Stories, the podcast, I like to ask the contractor, the home service professional, their stories. Everybody wants to know the background, like how'd you get into it? Why'd you get into it? How you motivate your team? Do you have a team? Are you growing? Are you shrinking? Where do you want to be in 10 years? So are you ready for this?
Sure, let's go.
Okay. So to tee this up for everybody, you do landscaping and lawn mowing and fire pits mulching, pretty much anything outside. Why don't you describe your business a little bit?
Yeah. Um, we do a little bit of everything. So everything from lawn maintenance, mowing, like you said, all the way to outdoor living areas, backyards, um, pretty much, retaining walls, outdoor living areas, pergolas, fire pits,
Yeah.
anything outside other than really we don't do much snow plowing or irrigation, but we are looking at irrigation to do that as well. So
So I was looking at your grouping of services and I'm like, where's irrigation and or drainage, right? Because
right.
those go hand in hand with the landscaper. So
Mhm.
if the landscaper isn't offering that, you then have to farm that out or your customer needs to go outside to get that because often that's part of a project.
Right. Yeah, and we do drainage.
Mhm.
But yeah, irrigation, there's not a huge call for it in our area, but we're in rural Western Kentucky, and I'm sure we'll get to that as well. But so it's not a huge service that everybody wants. And so we've looked at it just because there's good profit margins in it and there is a need. But yeah, just something we haven't got to yet.
Yeah. And you get to put it in and then you get to maintain it because there's always a sprinkler head that goes bad or there's a leak. Someone by accident goes through the pipe with a shovel and because they're only buried that deep, right? So it's a good maintenance type service as well. Once you get a customer, because you guys have great customer service, I assume you're going to keep a customer for anything, whether you're just mowing their lawn or possibly, doing their sprinkler system. How did you get into this business? I mean, how does someone get into the outdoor living space business?
So long story. I don't know what you want, the long story or the condensed version.
You can give me the long one. We've got time.
Okay. So in 2008, I started um, with one mower and
Oh,
myself, basically as a side gig, and because I had a neighbor's friend, actually their pastor, that just out of the blue asked me if I wanted to mow their yard and get paid, and I'm like, well, sure, like that'd be, I wanted a good lawnmower for my own yard, right? And so I'm like, well, heck, I could make a payment on a mower with what I make from this guy and have a free mower. So that's how it started with one guy and one customer and a mower. And just so happened the next year, which was 2009, if you remember 2009 and 10, what the
rough,
economy did,
rough,
right?
rough time.
So,
Yeah.
so I started my business in the worst possible time ever, right, in 2008. And so 2009, I was in the manufacturing environment, manufacturing industry in aluminum. And that industry took a hit. Lost my job in 2009 and could not find another job. I looked everywhere. I applied everywhere and could not find another job. And so I just came to the realization that, and actually, be brutally honest, I was fired from that job. Long story there as well. That company got rid of 34 people that year,
Mm.
trying to basically for workers' comp reasons. And so, anyway, long story short, I was let go of that job after 10 years, and decided just to pursue the business. I thought, if I've got one employer and something happens, I lose that whole entire paycheck. But if I've got 500 customers and I lose one or two, then it's okay. And so it was a pretty rough 3 or 4 years, basically by myself,
Mm.
doing everything from mowing to I'd mow a few days a week and then landscape a few days a week, and really just trying to keep my head above water and I had 3 kids and a wife, and trying to pay the bills and and keep the lenders at bay. And so it was a rough few years. After that, I guess in probably that was 2008, 2012. I brought on my first employee, just kind of helping me on on the side. 2013 or 14, I guess, we opened our first retail location. Um, we took over an existing, or what used to be an existing garden center, like a nursery, really. And so took that over basically just to get all the plants. My wife wanted all the plants out of the driveway, right? So,
Yeah.
so basically for that. And the year after that, we opened a second location. 2 years after that, with 2018, we actually combined both locations into another location. And so it's just kind of snowballed from there. And so we grew really slow for about a decade. Basically, I mean, I didn't get into business because I knew business, right? I got into business because I was good at cutting grass, and so and landscaping. And so we learned as we went. Um, and the first patio we ever put in, I didn't have a clue what I was doing.
Mhm.
I sewed the patio, and then I had to watch YouTube for 2 weeks trying to figure out how to do it. Right. So like I problem solved, and I've always said I'm not in the landscaping business. I'm in the problem solving business. I just happen to landscape. And so we've been solving problems for 15, whatever, 16 years, I guess now. And so here we are.
That's a great story, and it's a very honest story too, because you could have embellished some things, but it sounds like you were brutally honest. You needed to work. You figured you could mow lawns, pay for your lawnmower, end up growing up from there. And it's really, really hard to make money mowing lawns. I mean, seriously, you got a pickup truck, or even worse, an old 1990 sedan with a lawnmower in the trunk, right?
Right.
You picture it with a couple gas cans, going from yard to yard. You can't charge enough to make money. How did you make money doing that?
I didn't a lot, and that's one of the reasons. During a recession, what happens? Everybody, and it has a lawnmower, goes and cuts grass, right? Or everybody that has a scrub brush goes and cleans windows, or it's an easy barrier it's no barrier to
Yeah.
entry. So what I started doing again in 2012, we started doing more like patio. I sold my first patio. So we started doing more hardscapes. I started doing, more landscapes. I started doing stuff that people just couldn't jump into. It was a
Exactly.
little bit more of a skill set. You had to apply yourself a little bit more. It just wasn't sitting on a lawnmower all day. And so we started doing more of that, and now like I said, now we're doing full outdoor builds. But I still like the mowing and the maintenance, and it's just kind of in my blood. But it, at the end of the day, the other stuff, the huge builds and all this is really what we kind of specialize in now, just because I mean there's not as much competition.
And you're exactly right. The people who make the most in any industry specialize. So, for instance, if you go to your general practitioner doctor, the family doctor, you go there for things, annual physicals, a cold, maybe you twisted your ankle and you go to your doctor. When your doctor determines that it's above them, they send you to a specialist. Maybe it's a, gastro specialist for your digestive. Maybe you have headaches and they send you to a neurologist. Those people are fewer, right? So it kind of goes like this to the top. And the
Right.
ones at the top who specialize make more money. So I love talking about specialization, because when you do something that fewer people do and you do it well, your income goes up.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, because you'd have been chasing your tail for decades with a lawnmower in your hand. And then you get too old and then you physically can't do that yourself. And even if you have a 50-person crew, it's still razor thin margins at a bigger scale.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's great. So hardscape, I love the hardscape. Um, YouTube was your first trainer, teacher. What have you done since then to learn more about that art?
Oh, a ton. So I'm a constant learner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Huge on personal growth. I mean, it's just obvious. I mean, there's just ever since I was 18, just huge on personal growth. But as far as a trade goes, I mean, industry events, any industry trainings that we can get. We have a lot of vendors that do training, so we
Mm-hmm.
we always take advantage of that anytime they do that. Um, yeah, just trying to, kind of one of my mottos that I lean on every day is be 1% better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so just trying to be better not only at our craft, but better business owners, better customer service reps, better field technicians, whoever, wherever your role is, trying to be that 1% every day.
Well, Chris, congratulations, because a lot of people in your field of business, let's take home service contractors in general. They're so focused on their job today. They have jobs. They work for themselves. They may be businesses or maybe self-employed, but they're working for today and not investing for the future, for tomorrow. I know that you're part of Tommy Mello's Home Service Freedom. You obviously made a conscious decision to better yourself. Tell me about how you found Tommy and that journey.
Right. To be honest, I don't remember how I found Tommy. Probably on Instagram or TikTok is probably where I first seen him at. And I had no idea who he was, to be honest. And I didn't necessarily know that his business was as big as it
Oh.
as it is. So yeah, so we actually I first signed up for the newsletter, which
Mhm.
is packed. I mean, for a small newsletter, it's packed full of information, and then they just kind of grandfather us into to the home service, the freedom.
Yep.
And I've not really took advantage of it a lot as I probably could have. I've got some coaching and stuff that we do as well, as far as some other coaches and stuff. But there's a lot of information in there for sure.
Yeah, it's good. I'm so glad to hear that you are doing 1%, 1%, 1% over time. It compounds. It's amazing. It's it's kind of like gaining weight. You and I both actually have a story. You haven't heard mine, but you shared with me earlier that you recently lost some weight, correct?
Yeah, it's been a few years ago, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And so a pound, even a pound a year, not a pound a week, not a pound a month, just a pound a year. In 20 years, you're 20 pounds heavier. So from 20 to 40, you're 20 pounds heavier.
right.
And people don't gain 1 pound a year, they're gaining 1 pound a month. Easy. And but it kind of creeps up on you. But that's good for what you're doing in business with bettering yourself with the education, right? 1% better, 1%. And if you can do 1% better financially in your business, even just month after month, if you did it day after day, it'd be huge. I mean, it'd be crazy.
Yeah,
The way it compounds is crazy because you're not having to add 1% a day. You're getting 1% more on that compound. And so when you plug that into a financial calculator, you end up having, exponential growth. How big of a company do you want? Do you want a big company? Like Tommy's built a very large $250 million home service company.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Like I think so. I think everybody's. I think everybody's in stages, and I don't know. Maybe Tommy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Tommy envisioned a 200 million or a billion. I know he's mentioned $1 billion company,
Billion, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When he was at a million, I don't know that he could even think about a billion.
Yeah.
Maybe he could. I don't know. And so I think as your personal development gets as you get more into your personal development, I think your vision can get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I could see us at a $10 million company. Um, we surpassed seven figures last year.
Great.
Now I didn't tell you this. I also own a garden center and a,
Uh-huh.
and a nursery as well. But our landscape company will be very, very, very close, just the landscape division, to seven figures this year.
Wow.
Um, and so we're seven figures overall, but I'm just saying this is the landscape division. So my goal is in 2029, by 2029, which is in like 4 years or whatever, to be at a $5 million company at a minimum of 15% net profit. Because the thing for me is I don't want to build a big company to build a big company and not make money.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that, right? So um, the goal for me is to create a company that so the thing for me is to create a company that can encompass all the goals of everybody inside of my company.
Wow. That's straight from Tommy Mello. It's it's
Right.
it's the dream of everybody, right? And everyone participates, everybody wins. And so that's so important. You're actually impressing me a lot because you're not not a typical guy that cuts grass or a landscaper. Nothing against that. I'm just saying that
Right.
you really think like an entrepreneur, a visionary, a good manager in general, a good steward of the company. It's incredible how many people who are in your type of business that don't think of tomorrow. They're like, I'm thinking between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's my day. Boom, or 6 to 6. And then they do it again. They may as well just get a job because that's what it is. They're not plugging anything in to build a foundation for tomorrow. And I'm really impressed with your thought process.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My goal has always been to work myself out of a job. So
Yeah.
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 And honestly, I tell everybody that works for me, and they can attest to this same thing, is if you're in a position, your goal should be not to be in that position in several years. Your
Hmm.
goal should be to create a person underneath of you that can take your position so you can move to the next position. And if you don't, then you're probably don't need to be on the bus.
Yeah. In your position now as the leader, you need to be able to move around and move up. However, there are some people that you may want to have in a position for 10 or 20 years because that's really what they're good at. Maybe he leads a crew and he knows how to do that and he shows up on time every day. He's seen everything and he doesn't want to do anything else. And that's actually pretty good for an employer because they know he's not going anywhere. He's not always looking for the next thing. He's loyal to you and the company and to that position. But if you're leading it, you need to understand something about each position. You don't have to be an expert. You want to hire the expert for that. And you need to keep moving forward. You have to be the visionary.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not good at a lot of stuff. And so
Hmm.
like I've tried to hire um my weaknesses and what I
Hmm.
know I'm not good at because I am sort of the visionary. I'm horrible at day to day. Um I can come up with 1,000 ideas before lunch. And so so that's kind of where I'm trying to stay in my own lane, just trying to stay in my own lane now as best as I can. So
Yeah. And it's all a process. When we're born, we don't come out with some kind of manual of life. We got to figure everything out. Relationships, studying in school, how to get out of school, how to get a job, don't want a job, how to start a business, relationships with a woman, then do you want to have kids? And then you got to. I mean, it's tough, right? Because you have to manage all these things: your nutrition, your health, your neighbor who never mows their lawn, and you're like, I could do it for you. I'll do it for free because I don't want to look at it anymore, right? And so all these things, and so it's it's a lot. But I'll tell you what's really fun is when you get to be I would say probably in your 40s for a man with the experience, it starts to compound. All of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, I know this. I've done this." And so now when you do this, it doesn't take you as long to get there, right? And that's what I really love about this time of life. Because if you were trying to grow your business today at 22 years old, you just don't have the breadth.
No, no. And I think, we've been in business 16 years,
Mm.
and in the last two is when we've really caught traction. Like,
Yeah.
we've grown between 70 and 80% in the last 2 years. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we've grown, well, it'll end up probably between 30 and 40% this year.
Fantastic.
And this isn't a year when I hear a lot of people saying that they're down,
Yep.
and so, but I think, there's so many people that say this. Of course, you get on social media and TikTok and Instagram, and everybody wants to glorify entrepreneurship and business ownership, and they think it's, again, the 22-year-old makes it look like it's, I've got the Lambo and it's instant millionaire. And now it's 16 years of getting your teeth kicked in is what it is, for to finally get traction after 14 and start figuring things out. And so, yeah, that it took 16 years to become an overnight success, right? I mean, you hear people say that all the
Yep.
time.
Yeah, it's the opposite of a professional athlete. If you're an NFL player, you probably played in college. And if you're starting in the NFL, you're probably in your very early 20s.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all based on youth. So it's different. In business, it takes longer and you're competing with people who've been in it longer. But I will tell you this, if you can play football when you're 60, like you were 20 physically, you'll be a real good player. Just think of the experience can you imagine? Just think about that. Think about a football player who's 60, been playing for 40 years professionally,
Yeah.
and can move like a 20-year-old.
Well,
That would be a killer.
look at Tom Brady. He got better
Well,
the older he got, right?
now he's not quite 60, but he was old. Yeah. No, but he's a good example because he had a lot of experience. And I mean, gosh, he still looked like he was 32 when he retired. So
Right.
he's something else, that guy. And so, it's true. Companies like Subway and Starbucks, they started in the 70s, but they really didn't get popular till the 90s and 2000s. Subway didn't start popping up a lot, I believe, until the 90s, and Starbucks early 2000s, I think. But I think they were established in the 70s. And they're kind of like sleepers, right? And then all of a sudden they wake up. And that's true of a lot of companies, like you said, a 16-year overnight success type thing. And what's really cool about this, Chris, is that no matter what you do, even if you exited this business and started a new one, you have all this experience to then move quicker. Whatever you do, you're going to be moving faster to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Nothing's wasted. It's either learning or earning, one or the other.
Exactly. So what separates you guys at Perfection from the competition?
Mostly is our quality and I see so many jobs that are just complete hack jobs. And it
Yep.
just, I mean, we get calls all the time that I go look at a job, and the people have spent their hard earned money on a project that they hope they would get a great return on. And then, they're having to find money to fix the problem that's still there, or the problem that was created by the contractor that created a problem when he was there. So, yeah, that's the main thing, is our quality. I mean, we're not the cheapest by no means. We're probably the most expensive in town.
Good.
And I tell people that. If they're looking for cheap, we're not them. But we stand by our work. We've been here for 16 years. We'll be here in 16 more. So,
Yep. You don't want to be the cheapest. Tommy Mello will tell you that. He's not the least expensive in his business by far.
mm,
And a lot of home service professionals are afraid of charging too much.
mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I won't win the bid. I won't get the job. We'll be known as the expensive ones. You know what? It's okay. Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Bugatti. Now that's just in some cars. They're specialty cars. They're expensive and they don't make excuses. Not for everybody, which is fine. And I find the customer who spends more complains less.
Yes.
Not true. It's a
In
law.
general, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes as business owners, we have to make this decision. Let's just cut off the low end stuff, the low pricing. Let's go in with our chins up, proud, say, if you can't afford us, you're just not our customer.
Exactly. Well, for years I didn't raise prices, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just matter of fact, this year, I raised prices mid-year, and I actually went up $20 an hour on our labor, and
Wow.
yeah, and
Wow.
I was like, we'll see what happens. If it doesn't work, we'll back it off. But I didn't really see a I didn't see a downturn on our closing ratios or anything, and so I think it's all about how you present yourself. If you roll in a 1986 beat up Chevy truck with
Mm-hmm.
everything hanging off of it and the muffler falling off, and because you can't afford a truck because you're not charging enough, and you get out in dirty clothes and sweat stains, and and I pull up in a decent truck and looking decent and presenting a professional appearance instead of a chuck in a truck. I mean, you're going to be able to charge more.
Absolutely. It's that impression. It's the first impression and also going forward. Um, once again, Tommy talks about his rebrand he got with Dan Antonelli from Kick Charge Creative. And doing a rebrand can make a huge difference because it then sets the stage for everything. So it kind of gets you to sit up straight. And now you get shirts with the logo and the caps and you got the wrap and maybe a new website but it's when people see the consistency of that, they're like, they must be good. Look at them. They look great. They look like a movie star. And it's important. And then some people will say, but I don't agree with this. Well, if I drive up in an expensive truck and it's wrapped and I have nice business cards that don't have, rolled edges or whatever, then they're going to think that I'm too expensive. Well, too expensive for what? Now, if you're hauling junk, that's one thing. If you're putting in hardscape, it's another thing. So yeah, if you're hauling junk, you can't dress nice. It doesn't really matter. You got a dumpster and an old truck, fine, I guess. But if you're going to make that backyard oasis nice,
Mhm.
play the part.
Right. Well, even the junk, like you got like 1-800 guy, the 1-800 guy junk.
Mhm.
I mean, they still got wraps, and they've still
Oh
got all
yeah.
their branding, and
Yep.
it's just I know whenever we wrapped all of our trucks, and it's funny you talked about. I just messaged Dan today about about us looking at a rebrand
Yep.
sometime over the next year. But yeah, we wrapped all of our trucks. We had glittering on it and stuff. It just wasn't a wrap, so we wrapped
Mhm.
everything, and huge difference. I mean,
Huge. Yep.
people say all the time, like, I see your trucks everywhere, and like, I mean, it's we've got like 4 or 5 trucks on the road, whatever it is. Not very many, but everybody thinks they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny how people think that it's more than it is, but that's fine because their impression of you is their reality. So it doesn't matter. If they believe they see it and they believe you're everywhere, then you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really important. What's really great about doing a vehicle wrap, I find, Chris, is that, yes, you got to pay for the upfront cost, but after you pay for that, it's free advertising because you need the vehicle anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's the way to go. I've done it before with businesses, and people would say, I see you guys everywhere. And honestly, there was only one vehicle wrapped, and it's the one I drove. And like, I see your trucks everywhere. I'm like, okay. Isn't that funny? Like, whatever, and it's, I used to correct people too. They'd say something like, hey, I heard your ad on such and such radio station, and we weren't on that radio station.
Right.
And I used to correct them. Now I'm like, nah, great. Glad you heard it. Because they don't want to be wrong. And why would you want to, spoil their joy? It's interesting. Well, hey, thanks for joining me today. Is there anything that we've missed you'd like to get across to the listeners today?
No, I don't guess. I mean, we can sit here and talk all day, but yeah.
All right, Chris, this has been great. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it, buddy.
All right. No problem. Thanks.